Lorde has reemerged after 4 years with her fourth studio record, Virgin. After the retreat to acoustic and beachy vibes on Solar Power, a record that some just didn't love, Lorde is officially back to her grungier electronic roots, abandoning polish for a tougher and minimalistic record that some will see as a return to form and others see as a regression. Before I continue, I have to say that the expectations of this being a Melodrama 2.0 are unfair, and as Lorde always does, this is something that is very new and infused with agency and purpose. You know the drill, I'm going to talk about the record, its themes, and then do a track-by-track review before giving it a final score, so let's go. Lorde's Rebirth recapped. Lorde was hurting. In 2022, she admitted in a newsletter that the reception to Solar Power was painful and confounding, but also something that she learned a lot from. She would tease that she was closer to writing proper pop bangers again during a show in London, teasing the record through interviews. She hinted at a more electronic sound with 2 unreleased new songs, Invisible Ink and Silver Moon, at the Boardmasters Festival, drawing acclaim for what she called the night vision version of her Solar Power tour. Then came the heartbreak. Lorde and her longtime boyfriend Justin Warren, a music exec who was involved in her discovery, broke up. The couple had a 17-year age gap. At the time, she was also facing health issues. 2024 marked progress when she debuted a cover of Take Me to the River for a Talking Heads tribute record, but she re-entered the public sphere with a remix of Girl So Confusing with Charlie XCX that was acclaimed for its honesty about her health and body image issues. Lorde would team up with Jimmy Stack to conceive a new vision, calling up Dev Hines, Dan Nigro, Fabiana Palladina, Buddy Ross, and Andrew H. for help. Not returning was Melodrama and Solar Power co-architect Jack Antonoff, as her intuition pushed her to move on. Lorde would imagine this album as transparent, the color of the record something reflected by bold album art taken by Heji Shin of an x-ray of her pelvis, IUD, belt buckle, and pant zipper. The album being a raw document of her femininity through an array of terms including masculinity. Virgin was the title, revealed as an essence, androgyny, not being attached to a man, one in herself. The album's first single was What Was That, which dropped in April. Its music video includes footage of her surprise Washington Square Park appearance, which had been taken down by the NYPD. The track received acclaim and even charted in the top 40. She would announce the album on April 30th, as well as 2 singles, Man of the Year and Hammer, that dropped. Lorde would market this record primarily through pop-up listening events throughout the world. The Ultrasound tour was announced and sold out in North America, and now the album is out. Which brings me into my overall thoughts. One of the first things I thought about this album was how melancholy it was. Despite having some upbeat tracks, this album's really about growing pains. Rebirth and closure on her relationship are the focus, but it also speaks to the pain and almost body horror of the process of reforming yourself. We often think of the phoenix coming back to life as a symbol of strength, but this album reminds us that the process of rebirth is painful. Being reforged by a fire includes getting burned by that fire. Instrumentally speaking, I think Lorde and Jimmy Stack went for something that was very understated. Much of the focus is on the songwriting and vocal work, which might disappoint a few listeners. This album's not concerned with climaxing or arresting the audience in a conventional pop sense. I do think anyone looking for a common structure or solid pop vibe should look elsewhere. Lorde has never really been a conventional artist in that sense. Her math is very different, especially here, which is why I think the Melodrama 2 hopes are more or less dashed here. A few of the songs do lean on a tried and true pop formula to some great effect. 2 of my favorites, Broken Glass and Favorite Daughter, both resemble classic pop and earlier Lorde structurally. Lyrically, this one's her most stunning record yet. I think thematically it is a follow-up and return to her earlier observational self on Pure Heroine, and also the more deep emotional wound picking that happens throughout Melodrama. But from the point of view of a woman who is in her late 20s, who has been long divorced from Flights of Fancy and the shine of being seen as a prodigy. Much of the album really cuts into not just where she's picked up unhealthy behaviors, but also questioning why she continues them. Generational trauma, gender expectations, force of habit, insecurity. But she never quite digs into them so much as the challenges of letting go of those behaviors. Much like Melodrama, I think this is a headphones and walking record. I found my first listen alone in a dark room on speakers was very different from my second listen, taking in the city giddy and moving to the music. It's an album that demands motion, and it's not necessarily dance, but it's something that speaks to the visceral experience of being in your own body. Lorde's lyricism and production choices really reflect skin and bone, raw, primal feelings with little artifice and polish. Of course, there's some moments of lushness in there, but I can see where the album dips into a rougher tone that leaves little for the imagination. It's more industrial, more brutal than Melodrama, which I found to be her most honest record before. She'll have you bopping to admissions of her eating disorder, she'll have you crying in your bed about a time she watched a sex tape, she'll have you question the forms you choose to take as you try to find love and shapeshift. And yet, there's still some playful wonder in all of this heaviness throughout the record. On Clear Blue, a track about the rush and fear and love that happens when you're waiting on a pregnancy test, you hear a wry smile of self-surprise. On GRWM, you recognize the double meaning of that track and the ownership of self that she inhibits in that track. If She Could See Me Now is one of my favorites. It's a spiritual successor of sorts to Helen of Troy, seeing her recognize her power and worth while sampling a 2003 Baby Bash banger. Lorde manages to balance light and darkness in a way that rings truer than ever before. The singles in the context of the album make so much sense, though I do think something like Broken Glass or even Shapeshifter would have worked better at marketing the record's overall vibes and message. The singles are actually the weakest tracks individually compared to core, deeper album cuts, though I do think that the decision to surprise and sucker punch listeners outweighs any commercial aspirations. Anybody expecting a virgin summer should note that this is something that really requires digestion and will find its audience over time. I think a tour is going to really contextualize and strengthen this album even more. My last overall thought is how cohesive this album is. It's designed to be listened to as a whole, truly an album's album in the sense that the individual pieces often falter because the context of an earlier track is needed. This is the album's greatest strength and weakness. It's a very much all or nothing listen to me, something that requires a certain mood, and when it hits so hard. As someone who's really grown up with Lorde and is her age, I can't help but see this as another direct hit at my soul. But I also understand people who don't get it. Which brings us to the track by track. Hammer opens the album with a droning synth. It's an ode to city life and horniness as per her own words. It's also table setting for the story, a prologue for the adventure. The opening verse has her question her feelings if this is love or ovulation. My favorite line is, "Anyone with a snake tongue, I'll show him the chambers of my heart." It's a clear call out that she's unafraid of bearing her soul this time. On the first pre-chorus, she alludes to her gender dysmorphia. Some days she's a woman, some days she's a man, but the chorus is the thesis of the album, where Solar Power, her last album, is trying to find peace and order. Virgin is her accepting that there's peace in the madness, and then we get this euphoric post-chorus drop. The second verse and pre-chorus see her embrace the joy. It's a beautiful life, so I'll play Truant being a reference to her rejection of institutions and taking breaks to enjoy life before coming back. I jerk tears, they pay me to do it acknowledges her talent, but also how it's a career. The outro sees her crack open. She's been to hell and back, even Antarctica, and she'll always send us a postcard from there. Then we get What Was That, which has really been recontextualized for me. I thought it was a smart first single and likely the most familiar sounding track of the album, drawing clearly from Melodrama but also pure heroin sonically. Honestly, it felt a little incomplete, even with that outro adding color, literally in the blue light I can make it all right. You can tell that this song was one of the earlier tracks written for the album in the sense that she was still figuring out what the story she was telling was. What Was That is her taking in all the things that happened to her, the pandemic, her relationship falling apart, her career, everything in the 12 years since she started. It's a manic call to arms, the end of her relationship, and the starting point of the story of Virgin in a sense. She's stripped of everything she knows. Shapeshifter is a melodically driven fairy tale-like track. The instrumentation is raw, the drums are understated, the focus is on Lorde's voice and lyrics, which the album really follows in lockstep. Verse 1 sees her challenging herself to have the stones or balls to confront those demons. The Braids lyrics harken to Rapunzel. The pre-chorus sees her admit that she treats her partners like objects and that it's almost a compulsive behavior at this point. She uses sex for validation. The chorus is a Lordian take on the Madonna horror complex. She has been everything: the ice, the flame, the prize, the ball and chain, the siren, the saint, even the apple that Eve bit, but tonight she just wants real love. Verse 2 has her recall the evil queen's mirror. She's created this persona that she's just very unhappy with. She sees flashes of teenage innocence grounding her back to who she is. The bridge is heartbreaking. She strings people along and then pretends to be fine, and then when people do it back to her, she also has to pretend to be fine. And then she admits that she just wants love, which speaks to the cycle of rebirth and reflection and recognizing trauma patterns. Man of the Year is so much stronger in context of the album. It's a deeply affecting track, a song that she said she was most proud of. It's a track that touches on her embracing her inner masculinity. The moments of ego death had liberated her inner self, the cut the cord lyric being a reference to her own regulated femininity, per her own words. The chorus are rhetorical questions, almost a reflection of liability, somberness, but in the context, sometimes the only person who can really love her right is herself. Who is going to love her when she's like this? Herself. Verse 2 mirrors hard-feeling self-care lyrics before she tells us, let's hear it for the Man of the Year, herself. She herself is going to be her own Man of the Year, the outro embodying that she once stared at herself in nothing but tape, men's jeans, and a gold chain. In that way, becoming the man that she needs and is in her soul at times. Favorite Daughter marks the start of an all-timer 3-track run for me. This track is directed towards Lorde's own mother. It speaks to the generational trauma that kind of drives her to be the best daughter she can be. It's just as loving as it is complicated in recognizing that fear of never being enough. Her mother was her blueprint in some ways, and now she's questioning the design. Verse 1 sees her before fame, how her mother supported her pursuits. The pre-chorus sees her now, constantly on the move, with people not seeing Lorde fake it till she makes it. The chorus is very telling in the way that she's a pretender who's won all of these awards, breaking her back for her mother's love for her, not to really let down that idol. Verse 2 mentions her uncle, who she looks like, and how he took his own life, and how she knows there are dimensions to her mother that she'll never really understand. The bridge talks about times that she's danced herself till she got sick, chased her mother's dreams for Lorde herself, and the behaviors that she still does well into adulthood, trying to live up to what she believes her mother wants for her. Current Affairs is the only explicit track. It's got the string-driven production that evokes Blood Orange. It has some of the most interesting melodies on the record. There's an insane sample of Dexta Dapp's Morning Love in the post-chorus. I found it to be a cutting track about trying to appear fine when the worst things around you are happening. Verse 1 sees her reference the eclipse that she saw last April. The spit post that she made in June last year really makes more sense with that chorus. I found the track was her in some ways trying to reconcile her own relationship with sex, hence that second verse referencing the infamous Pamela and Tommy tape that she got whacked for. The last chorus and the bridge and the closing lines are some of the most musically interesting moments on the album. They really allow us to breathe for once on a record that really makes it feel like each song is drawn on a single breath. Clear Blue is the shortest track on the album, but it is one that punched me in the throat. This track sees her tackle this idea of accidentally conceiving, the flood of emotions that she felt taking a pregnancy test, and realizing that her life could change in a moment right then and there. The first verse sees her take the test. She says that she's nobody's daughter, she's being her purest self and free, a virgin in private moments, and she continues as her defenses fall through, and she speaks about broken blood, the trauma from her mother's mother and her own mother, and how the sex had kind of been an escape into ecstasy. The outro sees her wish that she had kept the test so that she could remember that flood of fear, revelation, and freedom that she felt in that moment. GRWM is a double entendre standing for both Get Ready With Me and Grown Woman. We start the song seeing her wash off her old lover. The pre-chorus sees her recognize who she wants to be, a grown woman in a baby tee. The chorus recounts facts: her wide hips, chipped tooth, being born in the year 96, her wide hips, soft lips, and mom's trauma. These are the things that she carries with her every day. Verse 2 sees her recount her 13-year-old self, how she would be proud, recounting days that she stole drinks from the liquor store, trying to be grown before taking home that revelation that she's made it. Broken Glass is a confessional about her own eating disorders and body dysmorphia against one of the most catchiest and upbeat productions. The instrumental has the steady but anxious, incomplete vibe, which reminds me of pacing back and forth in an empty room. If you thought her brief moment on Girl So Confusing was heavy, this one takes the cake. I Let Myself Be Sucked In by Arithmetic hit me hard as someone who's been haunted by a weighing scale in the past. The lines, I hate to admit just how much I paid for it, speaks to this emotional and physical toll to be be skinny and beautiful in others' eyes. The pre-chorus has her talk about her rotting teeth from purging, exercise bulimia, and the competitive nature of the illness before the chorus sets her free again. She wants to punch the mirror to show her that looks won't last, even if it's bad luck. She lost a whole summer doing math about her weight, and she just needs to hit back. The bridge speaks of the struggles of relapsing into another phase. If she could see me now points to the denouement and closure that she's been working towards. This song is a breath of fresh air. It sees her extol self-love and acknowledge her self-growth. The production is a triumph. She's a mystic swimming in waters that would drown anybody else. She rides this interpolation of Baby Bash's Sugar Sugar. Got me lifted, feeling so gifted. The brief moment at the end of verse 2 has her desensitize pain. A song is just a piece of music to her now. The memories are gone. Her ad-libs are kind of like an exhale. Verse 3 has her abandon fame for the clay of creation. She's painting her pain on the synthesizer. The chorus being her abandoning fantasy and wondering if her past self could see her now freed. David is the closer, which feels like the emotional climax and closer to this arc. The production and the vocals, the glitches that really build up the song feel like the final throes of recreation. It's a reference to the end of her relationship. Was she just a conquest? Calling back to the day on Sunset Tower people first saw them together publicly. If I had virginity, I would have given that to you too speaks to how she would have given him everything. Verse 2 sees her wonder if her ex wanted her because of that power imbalance. He dimed her out when things were tough and she was down, an uppercut to her heart. Pure heroine mistaken for a featherweight speaks to how people saw her as this fragile thing, not recognizing her power and wisdom because she was young. She fills in the chorus more about how she made him God even though she didn't really know any better. The glitches overtake her voice, almost drowning her out before the outro sees her question if she'll ever love again. Pure, plain and simple and clean, her voice is virginal at the very end, and ironically enough it loops back to Hammer, implying rebirth is a cyclical process. It's not over yet. But it also ends on a hopeful note. The final tell it to him feels like a nod to Man of the Year and the growth that she's made so far. In whole, Virgin is this powerful, unwieldy record that really boils Lorde down to just her bones, her lyrics and vocals, some interesting production. I was really contemplating which record of hers I would compare it to, despite it being so different from all of them, but it does feel like a proper spiritual successor to Pure Heroine. It's a reintroduction of sorts, a second coming of age, this time on her terms. And for that, I'm happy to award it a 9 out of 10, and I recommend. It's a great record. It's not going to hit for everybody, but it hit for me. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Virgin review. I have been waiting to do a Lorde review on this channel as an album came out. Like, I think this is the first time I've ever done that. What did you guys think of Virgin? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Like, let me know what your favorite tracks are below in the comments. Say shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting my channel and taking that extra step. A shout out to my subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning in to my musings. And yeah, I'll be back pretty soon with another video. So like, subscribe, do the thing, hit the notification bell, and I hope to see you next video.